After decades of silence, Kate Winslet finally decided to speak, revealing the truth about what really happened between her and Leonardo DiCaprio behind the scenes of Titanic. A truth no one was prepared to hear. So be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the untold stories behind our legends. And remember, you can always explore the sources anytime you'd like. For years, audiences replayed that moment in their minds, convinced they understood exactly what happened. A scene frozen in time. A feeling everyone thought they knew. But sometimes the truth hides quietly behind the camera, waiting for the right moment to surface. Long before she became the face of one of the most iconic love stories in cinema, Kate Winslet was simply a girl from Reading, England, ambitious, stubborn, and deeply serious about her craft. Born in 1975 into a family of struggling actors, Kate grew up in modest circumstances. Money was tight, comfort was rare, but creativity filled the house. Acting wasn't a dream, it was survival, expression, identity. From a young age, she knew she wanted more than applause, she wanted truth. At just 11 years old, she enrolled in drama school, commuting long hours and enduring rejection after rejection. Casting directors told her she didn't fit the mold. She was Hollywood, she wasn't polished enough, and she certainly wasn't what studios were looking for. Yet Kate persisted. Her early roles showed something different: rawness, emotional intelligence, fearlessness. By the time she appeared in Sense and Sensibility, critics noticed. They didn't just see talent, they saw depth, someone unafraid to be vulnerable on screen. Then came Titanic. A role so massive, so demanding that it would either elevate her or consume her. And while the world focused on the sweeping romance, Kate was quietly dealing with something else entirely, something that would only make sense years later. Before the red carpets, before the global fame, before the pressure of being watched by millions, Kate Winslet learned early what it meant to work. Her childhood was not glamorous. The Winslet household was filled with scripts, auditions, and constant financial stress. Her parents believed in art, but belief didn't pay bills. At times, they relied on charity. At times, they went without heat. These weren't stories Kate shared for sympathy, only context, because struggle shaped her. It grounded her. While other children imagined fame, Kate imagined mastery. She wasn't chasing celebrity, she was chasing honesty. At drama school, she stood out not because she was loud, but because she was focused. She studied people, she listened, she observed emotional nuance the way others memorized lines. Teachers noticed her intensity, some admired it, others found it intimidating. And then came the comments. Too heavy, too ordinary, too serious. The industry even then had expectations for young women. Kate did not fit neatly into them, and instead of reshaping herself, she made a quiet decision: she would reshape the expectations. Her first screen roles weren't flashy. They were demanding, complex, often dark. She gravitated toward characters who carried pain, contradiction, and inner fire. She wasn't interested in being liked. She was interested in being believed. That choice would define her career. When Sense and Sensibility arrived in 1995, it felt like a turning point, but not in the way most people assume. Yes, it earned her an Academy Award nomination. Yes, it introduced her to international audiences. But more importantly, it confirmed something Kate already knew. She belonged. Not because she was beautiful. Not because she was marketable. But because she could carry emotional truth without flinching. Directors trusted her, co-stars respected her, and audiences felt something they couldn't quite explain. There was weight behind her performances, a sense that nothing was wasted. Every look, every pause, every breath intentional. Then at just 21 years old, she was offered Titanic. A film so enormous it felt unreal. A production plagued by rumors, delays, budget concerns, and impossible expectations. Many actors turned it down. Others feared it would collapse under its own ambition. Kate didn't hesitate. But stepping into the role of Rose DeWitt Bukater wasn't just another acting job. It was an emotional endurance test. Long shoots in freezing water, grueling schedules, physical exhaustion, mental strain. And something else, less visible but far heavier. Suddenly, Kate wasn't just an actress, she was a symbol. Her body was scrutinized, her face dissected, her presence analyzed by tabloids and critics alike. For the first time, she felt the full weight of public ownership, the idea that once you are seen, you are claimed. The world called her brave, romantic, iconic. Behind the scenes, she was overwhelmed. The success of Titanic was explosive. Overnight, Kate Winslet became one of the most recognizable women on the planet. The film broke records, the love story became legend, and her image, frozen in time at the bow of the ship, was burned into pop culture forever. But fame has a way of distorting reality. Offers poured in, expectations multiplied, and the industry, once dismissive, now demanded she become something else. Thinner, softer, more agreeable. Kate resisted. She turned down roles that felt empty. She refused to chase blockbusters just for visibility. She chose projects that scared her emotionally, psychologically, artistically. This was not rebellion for rebellion's sake. It was survival. Because beneath the surface, Kate was grappling with something deeply personal, the pressure to exist in a body and identity constantly judged by others. The narrative around her appearance became louder than her work. Headlines focused on her weight instead of her performances. It hurt, but she didn't retreat, she didn't disappear. Instead, she did something rare. She spoke honestly. In interviews, she challenged unrealistic beauty standards. She defended authenticity. She reminded young women that worth was not measured in inches or approval. At a time when silence was expected, Kate chose truth. And that choice came with consequences. She was labeled difficult, uncooperative, uncommercial. Labels meant to discipline women who refused to conform. But the work kept proving them wrong. Film after film, Holy Smoke, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Little Children, The Reader, Kate delivered performances that stripped characters bare. No vanity, no safety net, just emotional precision. She aged on screen without apology. She allowed herself to be messy, unlikable, complicated. And slowly the narrative changed. Not because the industry became kinder, but because her consistency made dismissal impossible. Kate Winslet didn't survive fame by adapting to it. She survived by outlasting it. Years later, when she finally spoke openly about the emotional toll of early fame, it all made sense. The quiet strength, the refusal to be packaged, the deep seriousness she carried even as a child. She had always understood something most never learn. Success is not the same as fulfillment. Visibility is not the same as value. And truth, real truth, requires courage. Today, Kate Winslet is celebrated not just as an actress but as a standard, a reminder of what happens when talent is paired with integrity, when persistence is guided by principle, when a young girl from Reading chooses authenticity over acceptance. The cameras captured perfection, but perfection is rarely real. And on the other side of that legendary moment stood someone else, carrying his own weight, his own expectations, and his own version of the truth. While Leonardo DiCaprio's rise was meteoric, it wasn't accidental. Born in Los Angeles in 1974, Leo was raised in a world of art, rebellion, and unconventional thinking. His parents encouraged creativity, not conformity. As a child, he was curious, intense, and observant, always watching, always absorbing. By his teens, he was already working. Television roles turned into film opportunities, and then came What's Eating Gilbert Grape, one performance, one role, and suddenly everyone knew his name. Leo wasn't just a young actor anymore. He was a phenomenon. By the time Titanic entered production, the pressure was enormous. Studios saw him as a future superstar. Fans saw him as a heartthrob. But behind the scenes, Leo was still learning how to navigate fame, responsibility, and the crushing expectations placed on him. The role of Jack Dawson demanded charm, warmth, and effortless romance. But what the audience didn't see was how technical, repetitive, and uncomfortable filming could be. Especially during moments everyone assumed were magical. And especially during that moment. Long before the posters, the screaming crowds, and the tabloid obsession, Leonardo DiCaprio was a child shaped by instability and imagination. His parents separated when he was young. He grew up moving between neighborhoods, often surrounded by artists, activists, and outsiders. It wasn't a traditional upbringing, but it gave Leo something invaluable: perspective. He learned early that the world was complex, unfair, and deeply human. Hollywood for him was never a fantasy. It was an environment. As a child actor, Leo worked constantly: commercials, sitcoms, small guest appearances. He learned discipline before he learned glamour, rejection before applause. He saw how quickly opportunity could disappear and how easily people were replaced. That awareness never left him. When What's Eating Gilbert Grape premiered in 1993, critics were stunned. Leo's performance wasn't flashy. It was devastatingly precise. He disappeared into the role with a fearlessness that defied his age. At just 19, he earned an Academy Award nomination. But with recognition came danger. Hollywood loves to label young talent, to simplify them, to turn complexity into branding, and Leo could feel it happening in real time. He was suddenly the next big thing. The future of cinema. A star in the making. Expectations hardened overnight. And then came Titanic. A film so ambitious it bordered on absurd. A production that would define careers if it didn't destroy them first. For Leo, the role of Jack Dawson was both a gift and a trap. Jack had to feel spontaneous, free, romantic, a dreamer untouched by cynicism. He had to represent hope, especially opposite Rose's confinement. The chemistry had to feel effortless, natural, almost accidental. But filmmaking is rarely accidental. Scenes were repeated endlessly. Water was freezing. Schedules stretched into exhaustion. The emotional weight of carrying a global love story at 22 years old was something no acting class could prepare him for. And all the while, the world was watching. Not yet, but soon. As filming progressed, rumors spread, the budget ballooned, the media predicted failure, some outlets mocked the project openly, and Leo, still barely removed from his teenage years, became the focal point of skepticism. Was he too young? Too pretty? Too untested? The irony was sharp. By the time Titanic premiered in 1997, the question was no longer whether Leo could carry a film. It was whether the world could handle what he had become. The response was overwhelming. The movie shattered records, audiences returned again and again, and Leonardo DiCaprio was transformed almost overnight into a global symbol of romance, youth, and longing. But symbols are dangerous things. They flatten people. They erase nuance. They demand consistency where humans naturally change. Leo's face was everywhere. Posters, magazines, television, teen bedrooms across the world were plastered with his image. Fan hysteria reached levels rarely seen before the internet age. And with it came a kind of fame that feels less like admiration and more like possession. Suddenly, Leo wasn't just an actor. He was an idea. The industry leaned into it. Studios wanted him as the romantic lead, the safe choice, the beautiful face. Roles offered to him followed the same pattern: charming, desirable, emotionally accessible. But Leo felt the walls closing in. He had not entered acting to be admired. He had entered to explore, to challenge himself, to inhabit darkness as well as light, to confront uncomfortable truths. And so, at the height of his fame, he did something unexpected. He stepped away from the image. Instead of chasing the spotlight, he chose risk. Instead of repeating success, he sought transformation. He worked with directors who demanded more: Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, Danny Boyle. The characters grew darker, more violent, more fractured. Films like The Beach, Gangs of New York, The Aviator, Blood Diamond, each one peeled away another layer of the symbol the world had created. And still the pressure followed. Every performance was measured against Titanic, every box office result interpreted as proof or failure, every personal decision magnified by the public eye. Leo became guarded, private, selective. Not because he disliked his audience, but because he understood something crucial. Fame is not neutral. It consumes attention, it distorts identity, it demands performance even off-camera. And Leo refused to perform his own life. Over time, his dedication to craft became undeniable. He gained a reputation not for ease but intensity, not for charm but commitment. He pushed himself physically and psychologically, taking on roles that demanded suffering, obsession, and moral ambiguity. He didn't want to be loved. He wanted to be respected. That journey was long, at times frustrating. Award seasons passed him by, narratives formed about what he lacked, and yet he kept working, kept evolving. When he finally won an Academy Award decades later, it wasn't a coronation. It was confirmation. Confirmation that he had outlasted the symbol. That the boy once frozen in a romantic image had become an artist in full control of his legacy. Looking back now, Titanic feels less like the peak of Leonardo DiCaprio's career, and more like the beginning of his resistance. The moment he learned what the world wanted from him, and chose slowly and deliberately to become something else. Because becoming famous is easy compared to staying whole. And Leonardo DiCaprio from the very beginning understood the weight of being seen, not just as a man but as a myth. Two young actors, one massive film, and a connection the world thought it understood. But real relationships, like real moments, are always more complicated than they appear. From the beginning, Kate and Leo shared something rare: mutual respect. They were young, yes, but intensely serious about their work. They supported each other through exhausting shoots, freezing water tanks, and endless retakes. There was laughter, frustration, inside jokes no one else understood. They leaned on each other when the pressure became too much. The media, of course, wanted more: rumors, romance, headlines. Fans desperately wanted the love story to be real. But what formed between Kate and Leo was deeper and quieter. A bond built on trust, on survival, on being the only two people who truly understood what it felt like to carry a film of that magnitude on their shoulders. Years passed, fame exploded, lives changed. And still that one moment followed them. Replayed, romanticized, immortalized. Until Kate decided to finally tell the truth. Time has a way of softening memories, of polishing them, of turning reality into myths. But some memories don't fade. They wait. And when Kate spoke, the illusion finally cracked. In a recent interview, Kate Winslet paused and smiled before she spoke. Not a smile of nostalgia, but one that carried a long-delayed honesty. She explained that the famous kiss, the moment audiences believed defined romance for a generation, was nothing like it appeared on screen. It wasn't effortless. It wasn't magical. And it certainly wasn't romantic. The reality was controlled chaos. Harsh lighting, endless retakes, heavy makeup smearing from face to face, costumes that restricted every movement, pressure coming from all sides. Kate recalled how Leonardo couldn't stop laughing, not from joy but from disbelief at how unglamorous it all was. The scene had to be reset again and again until any sense of spontaneity was completely drained. Beneath it all was discomfort. Not emotional intimacy, but professional endurance. It wasn't romance, Kate admitted. It was survival. For years, the world projected fantasy onto that scene. But Kate revealed something far more human. Sometimes, what looks perfect on screen is awkward, exhausting, and nothing like what anyone imagines. And yet this truth didn't diminish the moment. It transformed it. Titanic didn't just create stars. It created myths. Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio went on to build legendary careers, grounded, respected, enduring. Their friendship outlasted fame, rumors, and time itself. And perhaps that's the real story. Not the kiss, not the fantasy, but the courage to tell the truth behind it. Because sometimes the most powerful love stories aren't about romance at all. They're about trust, honesty, and the bravery to let the illusion go. And when Kate finally spoke, she didn't ruin the magic. She reminded us where it truly comes from. And that brings us here. Follow the channel for deeper, behind-the-scenes stories from Hollywood's legends. Sources and references are linked below. Stay curious, stay connected. Until the next story.